Barry had 17 browser tabs open, each one a different guaranteed method to make money online. His bank account had $11.23 in it. The irony? He just consulted for a client who made $40K last month using strategies Barry himself designed. Barry charged him $150. And yes, before you ask, Barry kept $100 of that for business expenses and immediately spent it on a course about scaling to six figures. The course was taught by someone who made six figures, selling courses about making six figures. Barry didn't see the problem. That's where our story begins. Here's the thing about Barry. At 42, he was legitimately brilliant. He could spot market trends 6 months before they hit mainstream. He'd predicted 3 major platform algorithm changes with scary accuracy. Other marketers came to him for advice, paid him poverty wages for consulting, then made bank implementing his ideas while Barry ate dollar store cereal for dinner. Again, his wife Sarah had stopped asking when money would get better. Now she just made this face. You know, the one where someone's trying really hard to be supportive, but their eye twitches slightly. That face appeared every time Barry excitedly explained his next big project, while she mentally calculated whether they could afford both car insurance and groceries that month. The pattern Barry couldn't see. Let me paint you a picture of Barry's typical Tuesday. Wake up at 5 a.m. because some productivity guru said successful people wake up early. Spend 2 hours consuming content about success. Feel terrible about not being successful. Panic work on 4 different projects simultaneously. Make progress on none of them. See a new opportunity. Abandon everything to chase it. Go to bed at 2 a.m. feeling like a failure. Repeat. Barry's hard drive had 73 incomplete projects. 73! Each one was the one that would finally change everything. There was the e-commerce store with 200+ hours of setup work and 0 sales. The online course he'd filmed 3 times and never launched because the lighting wasn't perfect. The software idea he'd paid a developer $3,000 to build. Money borrowed from his sister, still unpaid. That he never marketed because he was busy starting something new. His friend Marcus, who had half Barry's talent and made triple his income, once told him, "Dude, you're like the world's smartest broke person. It's actually impressive how you managed to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory every single time." Barry laughed. It was funny because it was true, and it was devastating because it was true. The Breaking Point, featuring a Honda Civic and emotional damage. The moment it all crystallized happened in, of all places, a Target parking lot. Barry's 2009 Honda Civic, the one held together by prayer and duct tape, finally died. Just quit. In a parking spot, with his groceries melting in the trunk. While waiting for a tow truck he couldn't afford, Barry scrolled through his phone and saw a post from Tyler. Tyler, the guy who'd been Barry's assistant 3 years ago. Tyler, who Barry had trained, mentored, and taught him everything about online marketing. Tyler just bought his second rental property. And that's when something snapped. Not in a dramatic movie way. More like, you know, when you've been ignoring a weird noise in your apartment for 6 months and then suddenly you really hear it and can't unhear it? That kind of snap. Barry sat in his dead car and asked himself a question he'd avoided for years. Why do I keep teaching people to be successful while I stay broke? The uncomfortable answer. Here's where it gets weird. Barry started actually tracking his behavior, not his business metrics. He tracked those obsessively. His actual psychological patterns. Like a normal person journaling, except Barry made a spreadsheet because, of course he did. What he found was uncomfortable enough that he almost deleted it and went back to blissful ignorance. Every time Barry got close to success, like tangibly close, he'd sabotage it. Not obviously, not consciously, but the pattern was there, repeated so many times it couldn't be coincidence. He'd price his services 60% below market rate, then resent his clients. He'd create something valuable, then hide it because it wasn't ready yet. It was. He'd get opportunities, then ghost them because some part of his brain screamed, "People like you don't get opportunities like this." The real kicker, Barry realized he was actually terrified of making money. Actually terrified. Because somewhere along the way, he'd constructed this entire identity around being the struggling but brilliant underdog. If he actually succeeded, who would he be? The underdog story was safe, known, comfortable in a deeply uncomfortable way. Screenshot-worthy moment incoming. I'd spent 20 years treating poverty like a personality trait instead of a problem I could solve. The messy middle, where nothing works and everything's terrible. Barry didn't have some magical breakthrough moment. That's not how this works. Instead, he had about 6 weeks of feeling worse because now he was broke and self-aware, which is somehow more painful than just being broke. He tried affirmations. He stood in front of his bathroom mirror at 6 a.m., saying, "I am worthy of abundance," while his reflection looked back at him like, "Bro, your toothbrush is from a dollar store value pack, and you're literally talking to yourself." He made a vision board. It fell off the wall 2 days later. Metaphor? Probably. His friend Sarah found him crying over a YouTube video about mindset at 1 a.m. "Is this rock bottom?" he asked, "because it feels like rock bottom." She hugged him and said, "Honey, you've had like 9 rock bottoms. This is barely a rock middle." But here's what slowly, painfully, awkwardly started to shift. Barry began catching himself mid-self-sabotage. He'd stop and think, "Oh, there it is again, the thing where I convince myself I don't deserve this." It didn't stop the thoughts, but it created a tiny gap between thought and action. He started saying no to underpriced work. The first time, his hands literally shook hitting end on an email that declined a $200 project. The client came back offering $800. Barry almost fainted. He launched the imperfect course. The lighting wasn't great. The audio was whatever. 17 people bought it. That's $1,783. Barry cried again, but different this time. The shift. Small, weird, and surprisingly effective. The turning point wasn't dramatic. Barry was reorganizing his cluttered disaster of a workspace and found a sticky note he'd written months ago. What if I treated my business like I was already the person I want to become? So, he tried an experiment. For 1 week, he pretended he was already successful Barry. Not fake it till you make it toxic positivity nonsense. More like method acting your future self. Successful Barry wouldn't price his consulting at poverty rates, so he didn't. Successful Barry wouldn't abandon projects at 80% completion, so he finished one, then another. Successful Barry wouldn't accept every opportunity out of scarcity panic, so he got selective. The weird part is it worked. Not because of magic or manifestation or whatever. It worked because Barry's problem was never capability. It was identity. He'd been operating from broke Barry trying to escape poverty when he needed to operate from capable Barry who occasionally has cash flow challenges he can solve. By month 3, Barry's income had tripled. Not because he learned new skills. He already had those. Because he finally let himself act like someone who deserved to be paid fairly for valuable work. The lesson. Earned through suffering. Here's what Barry figured out, and what might save you years of eating ramen in a dead Honda. Your poverty isn't a character flaw, but your poverty mindset is a choice you're making unconsciously over and over because familiar pain feels safer than unfamiliar success. The solution isn't positive thinking. It's behavioral. It's catching the pattern mid-loop and choosing different actions even when every instinct screams at you to play small, charge less, hide your work, and stay safely struggling. Start here. For 1 week, track every decision you make about money, pricing, opportunities, and self-promotion. Write down what you did, and then write down what the version of you who's already successful would have done. Instead, the gap between those two things is your poverty mindset tax. And then close that gap. One decision at a time, one uncomfortable conversation at a time, one fairly priced invoice at a time. Barry still drives a Honda Civic, but it's a 2021 and it starts every time. He still has imposter syndrome, but now he invoices anyway. He still sometimes wants to hide, but he ships anyway. The broken genius became a competent professional who occasionally has brilliant ideas. It's less romantic, but his bank account finally has more than 2 digits in it. And honestly, that's the whole point.